Affected by the fact that there had been such a serious accident on that site, and I'm grateful to everybody for the way they responded. It was a piece of amazing teamwork by everyone throughout our organisation.
The quality of that track work was proved on November the 3rd, when BR beat BA in a dawn dash from London to Manchester. Piccadilly Circus to Piccadilly Radio was the challenge. Piccadilly DJ Dave Ward went by plane, while colleague Becky Want took to the rails. The 6:50 left on time and arrived on time in Manchester. The 8:15 shuttle left 45 minutes late and landed 25 minutes late. Door to door, the railway won by 17 minutes. Another Intercity success.
Well, while the Big Bang was going on in the City of London, we've been having one of our own at Euston, in a manner of speaking, with a 5-week blitz on work on the downside, carriage maintenance and cleaning sheds. It would have taken 17 weekends to spread the work and cost £150,000 more. 90 staff from the area Civil Engineers Department at Watford took part in the £500,000 scheme. It's the first time work of this sort has been done in a Big Bang, and the standard of work achieved was very high.
News now from Leicester, where a new signalling control centre was officially opened in mid-November. The £1.7 million centre is part of a £22 million modernisation scheme, which will eventually bring most of the Midland Main Line under the control of the country's most up-to-date signalling system.
Birmingham New Street has a new area manager, Robert Owen, who was the Regional Operating Superintendent South. Now he's in charge of 2,000 staff serving 48 million passengers a year. Of course, we wish him luck.
A new arrival at Nottingham is Roland Ratt. He's spearheading a campaign to make Nottingham Station a litter-free zone. Roland Ratt anti-litter packs will get the message home to the children, and for the parents there are 79 red litter bins.
Jimmy Saville gets a lot of credit for his work with the handicapped at Stoke Mandeville Hospital. Now railman Bernard Carter is being immortalised with a statue at Stoke Mandeville Station in recognition of the part he's played in the partnership between hospital and station. Hospital staff have transformed a wilderness into gardens worthy of a Best Kept Station award. £600,000 is being spent on major improvements at Newton Heath Depot in Manchester. It's being transformed into the main DMU maintenance depot for the north of the region, and the roof, floors and train washing machine are all being improved. This should provide a much lighter, brighter and more easily cleaned environment for the 130 people who work there, and result in a better service for the customer.
If you've got news items or stories for us, please get in touch. Tell us your news on the Midland Today news desk number 0793 511 012. We're waiting to hear from you.
Well, now a look at how the region is performing. It's mainly good news with better figures this year than last. Peter Rayner is Operations Manager.
Yes, this is the most heavily used main line in the country. There are more trains on this corridor in this country and indeed in the world, from Scotland, from Liverpool, Manchester, all funneling into the corridor, into Euston and vice versa, of course. We try and combine on most trains the needs of people who are travelling at weekends, people who are travelling for pleasure, people who want economic and warm and safe comfort, and businessmen who require not luxury perhaps, but food and more secluded accommodation. Performance is going up, I'm pleased to say. It's going up because we've put money into it, we've put more staff into it, we're watching the performance daily, we're very satisfied that it's showing by the number of people travelling, and indeed from my statistics I'm on what I like to think is an upward spiral.
Performance is about much more than timekeeping records and financial figures. The letters we get from our customers are a pretty accurate barometer of how we're doing.
In September, Midland received 2,324 complaints, with the majority, nearly 600, about timekeeping. Analysing the letters shows that most were a result of the College accident.
Dentist Mr. Cross was off on holiday, but his early train from Preston was retimed. As well as worrying about getting to the airport on time,
the carriages had neither lights nor heating. There was no first-class compartment either. It was a bitterly cold night and we were just about frozen when we reached Euston. We felt that we were ripped off and would ask you if, in all honesty, you really feel that you are getting there.
Ticket regulations seem to cause a lot of confusion.
I recently got on a train to Manchester using the return part of my ticket. The inspector told me that it was out of date after it had already been checked by another inspector and was apparently okay. I paid the excess fare of £18.90, which I couldn't afford, but I would like a refund.
Overall, the picture is that our train service is getting better. Off the train, though, in stations and ticket offices, we're not doing as well. We also get letters of praise. The Reverend Peter Rowe found himself on a grossly overcrowded train, but, he says,
it was, in fact, one of the most enjoyable journeys I've ever had on British Rail. This was entirely due to the enthusiasm of the Guard, who, through a series of broadcast announcements, kept the standing passengers in our part of the train amused beyond our wildest dreams. I'm sure that it would have done your heart good to see so many travellers emerge at Euston after a ghastly journey in terms of comfort, smiling and even crying with laughter.
We got more than 180 letters of praise in September.
The Secretary of State for Transport, John Moore, has announced his objectives for the railway into the 1990s. Assistant General Manager Ivor Warburton on the three-year plan.
Well, at the beginning of the financial year in April, we agreed an expenditure budget with the businesses, which was the amount of money we needed on the region to do the job of running the trains for them. I'm pleased to say that after 28 weeks, we're slightly improved on that budget. And we hope that by the end of the year we shall stay in that position. But unfortunately, the revenue hasn't come through quite as strongly as they'd hoped in some of those businesses, and it may be necessary between now and the end of the year to have just some cost saving. In total, the region's done a very good job up to now, and if all the staff can help to make sure that the money continues to come in, then we'll see the year out in very good style.
Now that government support is being further reduced, there are fears that quality is going to have to be reduced.
I don't think we need have any fears about that. As I said, we're on course this year. I think we'll be able to agree a budget with the businesses for next year. And when you think of what we've done this year in improving on-train standards, improving punctuality, seeing new equipment well introduced, and a lot of staff training, particularly in customer care techniques, I think we can keep all that in for next year without adversely affecting the budget. I don't think we need worry about quality. We can sustain it.
Now, there are also fears with the publication of the new business objectives that fares are going to have to rise by as much as perhaps 25%.
Well, there was talk of reducing by 25% over a 3-year period the support that we receive from government. But if we look at the last 3 years, we've seen a 25% reduction during that period, and fares have risen by only a little more than the rate of inflation, and the amount that people actually pay for their journey in many cases has reduced because of the many special offers and marketing deals that we have. Any talk of 25% fare rises is really quite alarmist. They will need to rise, certainly in line with inflation, and we may need just a few percentage points more than that. But any talk of 25% is quite absurd.
A large part of the 1990s objective falls upon Intercity manager Jamie Mackay. He says he's looking forward to the challenge.
Well, we're running a lot more trains on time on the West Coast Main Line, and it's showing in our revenue as well. Thanks to the production team, the West Coast Main Line is the second best performing part of Intercity, doing better than the East Coast Main Line. Last year it was the other way round, so that's an old rivalry the West Coast is now on top of. In Intercity as a whole, we're not doing quite as well as we expected. We budgeted for a very big increase in our earnings. We're earning an increase, we're carrying more people and we're carrying them at better prices. We're not getting quite as many more as we hoped to.
Up till now, bus timetables, especially in areas with passenger transport executives, have often been designed to run alongside rail services. But now, as Provincial Manager Bob Gowndry explains, deregulation means more competition.
It means the abolition of all the rules which have governed the supply of bus routes in our towns and cities, which have been enforced for the last 50 years or so. It means certainly that the possibility of direct competition between buses and railways is much more enhanced. We are setting out to convince our customers that, in the first place, they don't even want to try the new bus services, and secondly, that if they do try them, we offer regularity, reliability, speed and punctuality which will be superior to the competition's products. In particular, you'll be seeing things like this. These are Sprinter and Journey cards which are intended to give them a benefit from sticking with us.
Fatal Attraction is a video narrated by Stuart Hall which aims to shock youngsters into thinking twice about playing near the railway. The figures are horrific. 17 children killed, 37 suffering a major injury last year alone. In Fatal Attraction, Stuart Hall talks to young people whose lives have been wrecked by playing on the line.
I was in hospital for 9 weeks, but about 7 operations altogether, but all skin grafts, all down my stomach.
Could I look at the burns?
All the way down, all my arm.
And your legs as well?
My legs down, yeah.
All your leg down?
Yeah.
And what about your hand?
And Fatal Attraction is available on loan to schools and colleges. Already it's brought home the dangers of playing on the track to thousands of children.
In the last edition of Midland Today, we brought you a report on a huge mural being painted at Liverpool St James Street, part of the centenary celebrations for Merseyrail. Now, as Midland Today's contribution to the celebrations, we take a look at some of the people and places that make up Merseyrail.
There are 2 road tunnels under the Mersey, one down there and a much newer one, just 10 years old, here. Now, Merseyrail has 2 distinctions. It was the first steam railway to be electrified. That happened in 1903, and it ran through the very first Mersey tunnel, much older and constructed, believe it or not, in 1886.
And from Hamilton Square, the track drops down under the River Mersey, which is almost a mile wide at this point, and they come up into James Street, which is the first station in Liverpool. Now, this particular piece of railway under the river, it's got some of the steepest gradients on BR. We're talking about 1 in 27 one side and 1 in 30 the other, with a short level piece in the middle.
The tunnel is there, just beyond the Royal Liver building. Now, water seeps in at a rate of about 4,000 gallons a minute. But they're a clever lot, the engineers here at Merseyrail. They don't dump that water straight back into the river. What they do is they pump it across the road to the Liverpool Post and Echo building, where they use it to cool down the presses. From there, it goes on into the Royal Insurance building beyond, where the heat is extracted and used to warm the offices. Only then is it tipped back into the Mersey. Deep down under James Street Station is the cramped signal box manned by Jack McIlwain and Carl Arthur.
I think the night turn between 10:45 and midnight is one of the roughest there is, because you've got all your stuff back to the depot. You've got men wanting to go in the tunnel on possessions and that. You've got to write it up in your book. You just haven't a chance. Phones are going all the time. Well, crossing over Sandhills Junction, you must have, what, 1,200 times these points move, 134. And say that's a day, so that's some movements in a month. So, what about 10,000, something like that? We don't see a great lot down here. I mean, you have a 9-inch window in that door there. That's all we have. 9 inches. There's bigger windows in Walton Jail for the prisoners to look out through.
And they're trying to barge their way.
Further down the line at Moorfields is the unique AOC and combined TV room, which has helped in deterring violence and vandalism.
You can see them doing whatever they're doing. In 9 out of 10 cases, this will cause them to desist. In 1 out of 10 cases, their behaviour will carry on unacceptably, and we then send for the police. There's an element of bluff involved because the police aren't always quite able to attend immediately, but we give the impression over the loudspeakers that a squad car will be there in 60 seconds. We do a great deal of loudspeaker announcing work in that we have a specially provided system whereby announcements, PAs, can be made at any station throughout the entire system, not just the stations on the underground network. And as a result of this, if a train is running late, starting from one of the suburbs runing in towards Liverpool, we are in a position to make an apology to the passengers and to advise them how many minutes late the train would be running. We can select an entire line, an individual combination of stations, or a single station for the announcement that we would wish to make. The service intensity is such that a stoppage of 5 or 10 minutes can lead to very serious complications.
We have a lot of little incidents. That's a case, I just had a case of goats on the line at Ledsham, which is between Hooton and Rockferry, which entails obviously they have to caution trains and have to get a P-way out to erect fencing. This has been going on for 3 or 4 years. The minute you say goats, they say Ledsham, and that's it.
It's a recurring theme. The farmer won't repair his fences, and it keeps happening. The public wouldn't believe some of the reasons we have problems and delays, but they're all genuine, and goats on the line is one, and we do have things of that nature that people think we're inventing. But I can't say goats on the line over the loudspeaker because it simply would not be believed, so we have operating difficulties.
Running an electric railway to such fine tolerances means being able to react quickly to every fault, especially in the power supply.
The supply is taken from the CGB at 3 points, Bankhall, Shore Road and Bromborough, where it is transformed from 33 kV to 11 and transmitted round the rings to the various substations, where it is then transformed once again from the 11 kV to 750 volts AC and then rectified to the track voltage for both the up and the down line. The purpose of this mimic is so that we can monitor the whole system, which is controlled by 2 PDP-11 computers which scan the system in 2.5 seconds. Here we have an example with the operation of the breaker 125 with a visual indicator and the station calling light number 3. The control operator will now bring up page 3 on his VDU to then take the action. In this case, we will have one attempt to close up this breaker 125. In this instance, breaker 125 has closed on the first attempt, which the incident has been dealt with in a matter of a few seconds, which is the purpose of the whole of this equipment, that we can deal with incidents quickly and positively.
These days, performance is at the heart of matters right through BR. Brian Wilson again.
Our taskmasters, if I can put it that way, are Merseyside Passenger Transport Executive, and let's face it, at the end of the day they foot the bill in subsidy to the tune of something like 18 million a year. They say that we must run 99% of our trains. Now that is the difficult target, because when you look at it realistically, we run 3,500 trains a week, and 1% of course means that you mustn't cancel more than 35 trains in a week. Now that sounds a lot of trains, but it's not a lot out of 3,500, and what's more, every man that books on gets involved in working 8 trains. So realistically it means that if only 4 people don't come to work and we can't cover their job, then we can't meet those targets. But by and large we do, week after week, and the only thing that occasionally stops us is incidents such as vandalism and people that will throw shopping trolleys at us.
Running a 19-hour-a-day service with 3,500 trains a week requires high reliability. At Birkenhead North, they're proud of the standards they achieve.
This workforce I've got here is second to none in the country. I think we've proved this over the years when the old workshop at Horwich and BREL at Wolverton can't turn out the goods like we can.
That's the spirit of Merseyrail, a spirit that makes it a continued success in the North West.
We've all heard of YTS, the government's youth training scheme, but how does it work on BR? Well, we talked to some of the 16 and 17-year-olds on BR YTS and to Brian Chambers, the administrator.
The current position on the London Midland region is that we have 14 schemes offering 252 places. There are 18 places on each scheme which are either clerical or traffic based. Our aim is by 1988 to get 1,000 trainees.
I'm working with Birmingham International at the moment, and the people there are really wonderful. They've taught me everything. I've done everything you can think of on the platforms and ticket barrier, parcels, everything.
You're not treated like a YTS person, you're actually treated as a member of staff.
I see the main advantage, obviously we've got a readily available source of recruitment who are highly motivated, well trained and flexible. They've been thoroughly assessed whilst they've been on the scheme, and at the end of the scheme have a vocational qualification.
Brilliant, it's really good.
I'd like to work on the railway permanently.
And that's it from this edition of Midland Today. We'll be back soon with more news about your region. Until then, goodbye.
Goodbye.